Hello everybody and welcome to R&B Reviews. I'm Rob and today I'm joined by Justin from Dust Productions.
How you doing?
Good, how are you doing?
Not bad,
Good.
not bad.
Good to have you back. It's been a while. I think the last time you were on my channel you had done not only my anniversary video but Captain Marvel. We reviewed Captain Marvel at the movie theater.
Yep, that was a while ago.
Yeah, so welcome back. And speaking of a while ago, today I decided to bring back a segment that I actually started last year, but I got so busy that it kind of took a back burner. I introduced a segment last year called First View, where I reviewed classic movies that I had heard of, but never had seen myself. Like, for example, I reviewed Bullet with Steve McQueen, and I also reviewed The Devil and Daniel Webster. Today we're going to be looking at Alfred Hitchcock's suspense thriller, North by Northwest, starring Cary Grant and Eva St. Marie. Alright, now, I had heard of this movie before, and I was familiar with this famous sequence where Cary Grant is getting chased by an airplane and being shot at in a cornfield, but I had never actually seen the movie. What about you, Justin, before we saw this?
I don't, like, we discussed this before, I don't really watch old movies. And that's why, like, whenever I talk to Rob, I'm like, hey, let's review an old movie. I always let him pick the movie, because I think the last old movie that we reviewed together was Lemon Drop Kid, and I thought it was really good.
Yeah, Bob Hope Christmas comedy.
So, going into it, I'd never, in an old movie, I never expected it to be good. And so far, like, I thought this movie was really good. Like, it held up.
Yeah, it wasn't because sometimes in old movies there's stuff that's not relevant or relatable anymore.
Yeah, like in a lot of movies, there's a lot of old movies aren't relevant because they're so dated, and just like the way people act back then isn't the way people act now. And with this movie, like, it holds up. Like, it's still, the jokes are really funny. Like, the dialogue still works, like, to the present day. So.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, basically, the plot line is Cary Grant plays an advertising executive in New York, and a group of spies mistaken him for a spy, and so they kidnap him, and they want information, and then, of course, it turns into one thing leading to another. There's other characters that get involved. Eva St. Marie, who plays the Alfred Hitchcock icy blonde that he tends to use in a lot of his movies, may or may not be a spy, but she gets involved with Cary Grant. And so basically Cary Grant's character has to stay along for the ride and get this mission taken care of, basically. Now, the movie runs at 136 minutes, and it came out in 1959, and I want to start with, like, some of the shots. The opening credits, I thought, did a very good job at showing the busyness of New York City, and the music went very well with it. And if you compare it to some of the other scenes, like a scene where Cary Grant's on his way to Indianapolis, where it's a little bit more quieter and there's not as many, music there, I thought that was pretty good too.
Yeah, they did a good job of setting up all of the scenes. Like, they did a good job with lighting. They did a good job with, like, all the different sets, like diners and stuff, I guess. They did a good job with that, and, like, usually, like, in older movies, like, you can sort of see, like, certain shots are set up bad and bad lighting. So they did a good job with lighting.
Yeah, I really liked the one in New York where they're at the restaurant. That made me feel like I was watching a restaurant in New York with the way it was lit. And you mentioned that you would have liked to have done more research on whether some of these things were actual locations or sets.
Yeah, because some of the stuff looks like they're in the actual places, like the diners, like, those had to have been in, like, real diners.
Well, I believe some of them were sets, but I know the cornfield scene, which we brought up, like, the close-ups were Cary Grant in the studio where he's falling on the ground, but there were other shots where he's actually at a location.
Yeah. There are certain scenes where you can tell, like nowadays, like, you can tell when something's done on a green screen. And you said something, like, they did that stuff different back then?
Yes, and they didn't have green screen. Instead, what they had was back projection. Like, for example, there's scenes where characters are inside a car, and instead of actually, being on location and driving like some movies do now, what they did was they have the inside of the car, and in the background there's a screen called back projection where they show footage of, like, a car, like the road, like, moving from behind. So they did a lot of that in some cases. Cary Grant was very good as the lead character, I thought. Like, he handled both the being confused as well as the witty responses pretty well. And there's a scene where he gets drunk, and he was really good doing that bit.
Yeah, like, it was really funny, and it was, like, his acting was done very good. Like he really looks like he's just trashed out of his mind. You know?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, in the 1930s, he did a lot of screwball comedies, which a lot of physical humor and stuff. So that's probably where he got that from. And Eva St. Marie, who, like I said, Hitchcock, Icy Blonde. I thought she was very nice and soft spoken. I thought she did well with her part, and I thought she and Grant had very good chemistry together, and I could kind of see some sexual tension in the characters.
Yeah, definitely. The bad guys are after him. Good guys are after him. This beautiful girl just all of a sudden just starts helping him. Doesn't even really know him, just from like reading the papers, or at least that's how she's portraying it. Like, I've seen you in the papers. I know everybody's after you, but I'm gonna help you out. And so, like, you get that sexual tension towards a beautiful girl that may or may not be like a good person. There's that excitement.
James Mason played the leader of the spy ring, and Martin Landau played his assistant, and this was one of his first movies, and I thought he had a lot of good subtext in the character. But the dialogue is full of, I thought, very great witty lines, in addition to some suspenseful ones. Like, for example, at the beginning, Cary Grant is like, there's no such thing as a lie in advertising. I really love the comical dialogue, and I really like the snappy responses that Grant gives, especially when he's being kidnapped. It's almost like Alfred Hitchcock is parroting his form. He's like, okay, now you're going to kidnap me. Okay, now you're going to lock me up in this room, and stuff like that. The dialogue was just crackling with this movie, and the dialogue I thought was really good. It was like listening to real people in a, I guess you could say, ridiculous situation.
It's believable. Like, something like that could happen. Like, what's a modern, I guess, what would be a modern day version of this? Those Jason Bourne movies?
Perhaps, yeah.
Like, that's probably like the closest, like, something that came out like in the now times compared to back then. But like, it's believable. Like, it could happen. Mistaken identity. Ooh, this is the bad guy. Nope, it's really like a banker or something. Like something. And so it's believable, and the jokes are funny. Like, the dialogue was done very good, and it's just believable. And you get that disconnect with really old movies sometimes with the dialogue, which I stated earlier, but you really don't with this.
Yeah. If I did have a problem with this movie, I thought it was a little bit too long. I thought maybe it was 10-15 minutes too long. I read an interesting story. Francois Truffaut, who was a director, interviewed Alfred Hitchcock about this movie in one of his books, and MGM wanted to cut the movie by 10 minutes. Like, there's a scene in the movie where Grant and Eva St. Marie meet up in the forest that they wanted cut. But Alfred Hitchcock looked at his contract, and even though he didn't ask for it, his agents gave him final cut. So he said, no, I'm keeping all this stuff in there. But I felt like it went on too long. Like, in the beginning, I loved that the movie was full of twists and turns, and a lot of them I didn't see coming. But then after a while, I felt like it was a bit too much. Like, I'd be like, okay, now in 10 minutes, this is going to happen. Yep. Okay, now this is going to happen. Yep. Yes. So it started to get a little bit predictable after like the second hour or so.
Certain things needed to be cut.
Yeah.
I didn't like the ending at all either.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it, but I felt like the way it was edited in was a little bit jarring,
the ending is a time jump, and then it goes to credits, like, after the time jump, and you don't realize it's really a time jump until after, like, you see the credits. You're like, oh, okay. Like, it doesn't, like, if I remember correctly, it doesn't say, like, 2 years later or anything like that.
But I for the most part, I really liked it. If I had to pick a favorite scene, I really liked the kidnapping scene where they're kidnapping Grant and taking him to this place where to be questioned. I mean, do you have a favorite sequence?
When the airplane's chasing him, I like that, and I also like the scene where he, like, escapes and he gets away in the car, and he's drunk and he's trying to drive the car. And he ends up hitting a police car, doesn't he?
I think so, yeah.
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 So I kind of like those two scenes probably equally.
Yeah. I also like some of the scenes between Grant and Eva St. Marie. Now, you told me that you thought this movie took place in the fall. Why do you think that?
Because the scene where he's in Indiana and he's on this road and there's cornfields all over the place, the corn isn't green, the corn is like brown. And when the corn is brown like that and dried up, and then it's ready to be picked, and that doesn't happen until October in the state of Indiana. So.
Yeah, and also there's a character that pops up that hangs out with grannies, and he notices the airplane dusting, and he's like, I don't know why we need to dust. There's really no corn here, or something like that. So he thought it was unusual that it was doing that.
Well, yeah, because there's corn in the fields. It's just the corn's ready to be picked. There's no bugs. It's fall time, so the corn's ripe. It's ready to come out. So that's what he was referencing when he was talking about that.
Yeah, but overall, I thought for the most part it was a very fun and energetic suspense thriller from Alfred Hitchcock. A little bit too long, but I really enjoyed it. You?
I enjoyed it. Like I said, I don't really like old movies, but I really like this. Like, I could see myself watching it again.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So I guess it sounds like we're recommending North by Northwest, and I do appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the video. And Dustin, did I call you Dustin? It's Justin. Speaking of dust on the corn, well, Justin, thank you very much for taking the time to see this movie and do the video. And I hope people check out your channel, which is mainly made up of like vlogs and things.
Yep, vlogs and ghost hunting and everything. So far, you're batting 1,000 with these old movies, man. Like, so far, so good. So I don't know, we'll see. We're going to have you pick another one, and we'll do another one of these.
Okay. All right, well, I thank you very much for watching. I hope you like the video. Click like, and if you're interested, check out some other movie reviews. And if you're interested, please consider being a subscriber. Thank you very much for watching.
We'll see you next time.